Good evening. In this video, we're going to be showing you how to insert page numbers for a College of Christian Studies paper, as well as to take care of a few problematic issues that often arise when it comes to setting your margins for College of Christian Studies papers. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to insert your page numbers. You'll see in this document that none are there, nor at the top or the bottom. For a College of Christian Studies paper, the first page of any major part of your paper, in this case the first page of the body of a book review, your page number is going to go at the bottom of the page and it's going to be centered. Each subsequent page of that same part of the paper is going to go at the top of the page and be centered. Both of these page numbers will be set at the 1-inch margin, as we'll show you here. First thing that we need to do, and regardless of your version of Word, you can typically get to your page numbers by going to Insert and go into Page Numbers. And once you do this, it's going to bring up a menu. Position, you want to default to the top of the page, and you want to set the alignment to center. You also may have a box here that can be checked or not checked that says Show Number on First Page. Go ahead and leave that box checked here, and then hit OK. So as you can see, it inserted a page 1 at the top of this page 2 here. But as we said earlier, on the first page of every major part of a Christian Studies paper, the page number needs to be at the bottom. So here's how we fix this. You need to click in the header. Your page numbers are going to be located in the header and footer of your document. And depending on the version that you use, mine has a formatting palette or toolbar where I can look right here and it pulled up the header and footer menu. You'll notice here there's a box to check that says Different First Page. Wherever that box is for you, you want to go ahead and make sure that's checked, and as this happens, the one at the top will disappear. You can close out your header. Go to your footer now, which is still blank. Since it says Different First Page, you need to insert another page number here. I have an option here just within this menu to insert. Many of you may have a similar menu. You click Insert Page Number. You'll notice that it defaulted to the left margin. We need to center that. You can close the header and footer. You'll notice that we have what we need. We have a page number at the bottom of the page on page 1, and we have it top centered on page 2. Now a few other things we need to address for the page numbers. You'll notice, first of all, if we click back in the footer, one thing you may notice here is that the font is incorrect. Now when you change the default font for the body of your paper in Microsoft Word, in which case we have here Courier New is what our document is in, Microsoft Word, for whatever reason, oftentimes will not automatically change the font in the header and footer. So this is an additional step that you will need to change manually. So you go into your header, you highlight the number, you change it to Courier New, making sure as well that it's 12-point font, and it is. You close out your footer. You go to your header and you do the exact same thing in your header. You can even hit Command A or Control A to highlight everything. Make sure, again, that you change the font to Courier New. Now that this is completed, you'll notice something else. You'll notice a gap here on the first page between a much larger gap than what it should be. The spacing between the number, as you see here, and the text should roughly be exactly what it is. It should be double spaced. It should be exactly what you see between these two lines right here. Now the issue here is that in addition to Microsoft Word having a default setting of Times New Roman in your header and footer, and you needed to change that, many versions of Microsoft Word will also have a setting. They will also have the page number set at the 0.5-inch margin. So if you see down here, as we're looking in the toolbar for the document margins, you'll notice that the header and footer are at 0.5 inches. You need to make sure that both the header and footer document margins are at 1 inch. So we've done it for the header. We need to do it for the footer. Okay. So you'll notice here a couple things, and I'll explain what happened here. The first is that we actually have most likely some form of a hidden section break happening here that's causing this jumbled mess. It's actually good this happened, so we can try to address this in this video. One thing I would recommend that you do, if it seems as though there is a hidden section break, let's actually begin by addressing this first. You'll notice here that this is at the 1-inch margin, exactly where we want it, but you'll notice that it, regardless of the mess that's happening here, you'll notice that it's kind of scrunched together. We definitely don't have a double space in between the number and the text. We've got more like a single space. So what you want to do is you want to highlight the number, and much like we've adjusted paragraph spacing as we saw that in the book review formatting video, we're going to do the same thing here. Now we need some additional space after the number, so we're going to go after. We're going to set it to 12. Now you'll see that it hasn't really changed yet, but once you close out of the header, it should address it. So now we've addressed that. For the sake of this video, and because it's currently 12:30 in the morning, we're going to ignore the spacing issue that's happening right here, and I'm going to go on and address with you the footer. So you can see how there's a large gap right here. Oftentimes this is caused by a setting that Microsoft Word has called a widow orphan control, and what it does is it will prevent only one line of text from being bumped to the next page. So instead, we could fit easily one more line of text here, but we can't quite fit 2 lines of text. So one thing that you can do in the College of Christian Studies, and this is what we recommend that you do, the default margins on all sides except for the top of the page on the first page, this margin is 2 inches, but the default margins on all sides, left, right, and bottom, the default should be 1 inch. But for the College of Christian Studies, in order to avoid this sort of gap right here, we will allow you to adjust your bottom margin to 0.9 inches. If that does not work, then you can also potentially adjust to 0.8 inches. Now if that doesn't help, and as you can see it didn't here, notice another thing. When we change the bottom margin, the footer did not change with it. So you would also need to adjust the footer margin. And you see adjusting the footer margin and the page margin, we now have this line here, and we no longer have the 2 lines being bumped to this page. Now again, we'll center this here, and there's other things going on here that we don't have time to address right now. But you can see how you have the page number at the bottom centered. It's at the 1 inch margin. You also saw, or excuse me, it's no longer at the 1 inch margin, it's actually at the 0.9 inch margin now, which again is acceptable. Your top page numbers, though, will be at the 1 inch margin, so make sure that that's the case. Let me show you one more file just to show you again another trick and a potential problem that oftentimes happens with margins. You'll see we're just in another sample paper right here, and you'll see what looks to be a pretty good size space here at the bottom. Let's go ahead and look at page 2, or actually see if we can find a space. You can see a little bit larger space there, and a larger space here. What I wanted to show you here is just a reminder that if you have too much space at any of your bottom margins, again, as we showed in the previous video, don't just simply adjust the bottom margin. Make sure that you adjust the footer margin as well, and oftentimes that will make a difference. One further note to say about this, as we scroll back up to the top, When you are adjusting these margins, you need to make sure that you adjust, for example, here the bottom margin. You need to make sure that you're on page 1 when you adjust that, because it's possible that if you adjust the bottom margins later on in the paper, that it will not end up adjusting the margins for all the preceding pages, but will only adjust the page numbers from this point forward. Hope this video has been somewhat helpful, at least as far as inserting page numbers. I'm sorry for the mishap that's going on here. I'll try to address this possibly in another video and see what happened with the heading. But in any event, you can at least see here page numbers, first page of the paper, bottom centered on the 1-inch margin, making sure the font is Courier New. On page 2 and any subsequent pages, you want to make sure that the page number is centered. Make sure the page number is centered. Make sure that it's at the top of the page, 1-inch margins. And you also want to make sure that there's about a double space in between the page number and the first line of text on that page. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to refer to the College of Christian Studies Style Manual for further information on page numbers. Have a good night.